This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it. There to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Is debt beating you down? You need discipline. You need the Debt Ninja. If you've been caught in a financial trap and need to be set free, then you need the Debt Ninja. Want to stop those harassing collection calls, start saving thousands in interest and fees, and get out of debt fast? Then you need to call the Debt Ninja. The Debt Ninja will find the best companies across the country that will help you consolidate all your bills into one easy payment, reduce your payments by 30 to 50%, and get you out of debt fast. If you have unsecured debt of $10,000 or more, such as credit cards, loans, or medical bills, call the Debt Ninja for a free 15-minute consultation.
Call 800-826-1246. 800-826-1246. That's 800-826-1246. Call today.
The Debt Ninja.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Sometimes we need to slow down and remember the simple pleasures in life. Good coffee, good books, and good company. Come on in. Take a seat. The coffee's just been brewed. Let's see who we have in the coffee shop today. All right, this is Jessie. Welcome back to the coffee shop. Let's see who we have in the coffee shop today. I've got author P. Mark DeBryan, and boy, does he have some interesting stories to share with us. How are you doing today, Mark?
Great, Jesse. It's good to be here.
Oh, glad to have you. And welcome to my new show, The Coffee Shop. It's been truly a labor of love. So
Awesome. I'll take a double latte, no foam.
So sounds good. Sounds good. All right. So how long have you been writing, and how long did it take you to write your first book?
The first book, I've been writing since 2014. So what is that, 2 years? And took me about a year to write the first book and get it published. So it was quite the effort.
Did you self-publish? Did you do the traditional route, chasing agents down? Because that's a year to get published traditionally is really quick from what I understand.
Well, yeah, a lot of things in this whole process have happened not the way things usually go. I was sitting around, I was a voracious reader since age 8 and just loved to read. I couldn't read and got passed over for the second grade because I couldn't read. And so my mother redoubled her efforts where that was concerned with me. And I just grew to love reading and started devouring everything I could get my hands on, every different genre you could imagine. And so I ran across this one author that had zombie genre, and I was like, I was into the post-apocalyptic thing, but I kind of ran out of authors where that was concerned, so I looked to find some other stuff, and the zombie post-apocalypse was out there, and it was just getting really genned up, and this guy had like 10 books. His name is John O'Brien, by the way, and I read all his books, really loved them, and friended him on Facebook and was talking with him. And then one day he put out to his fans that he wanted to have some people put in a short story for possible entry into one of his short story books, which kind of covered the people that weren't main characters in his series, but were characters that had been popped up here and there. So he had that in the first half of the book, and then had reader stories set up for the back half of the book. And so I sent him just out on a whim. I just sat down and cranked out a 10,000 word short story that sent to him, and he published it, and then came back to me later and said, man, we ought to make this into a full-length book, and we were going to do it together, and he was going to co-author it, and it was going to be that whole thing. And we went from there, and I spent, like I said, probably 4 or 5 months actually writing the book and then doing all the editing and whatnot.
That is a time-consuming process and a true labor of love. I mean, like I said, I don't write myself because I don't have the time, but I know enough people that do. And just like you, I'm a voracious reader. In fact, in 3rd grade, I was reading on a 6th grade level. By 6th grade, I was not only reading what the books my mom bought for me, but I was stealing her books and reading them. Something in common.
I was very grown up at an early age because of my reading habit, because I would sneak stuff that I wasn't supposed to be reading, and it's always been a problem of mine is knowing things that I shouldn't know.
Oh, that can get you into trouble, but it can be a lot of fun too.
Yes, it can.
Oh, I often know things, but and I don't know if you checked out my bio before the show, but my first husband was Special Forces. You can imagine how much information I picked up just from being in and around the community that I wasn't supposed to know.
Yeah. Pillow
talk, having the guys over for a home-cooked brisket and some beer. Yeah, they talk. But being the good spouse, I never repeated anything.
That's the way you got to be.
And then when he was killed in action, I took some time and just kind of spent some time on focusing on myself, and then I'd had a longtime friend and I remarried, but that's beside the point. But like I said, my job and other things are just so all-consuming that I just don't have the time to write books, but I just love them. So that's what.
Well, let me first of all say thank you so much for supporting him in his endeavors and our country in that same vein. That's admirable.
Well, I always seem to be doing something. I'm a army spouse. I'm an FRG leader. I work full time. It's one of those things. I'm always busy. There's never a lack of things for me to be doing.
Yeah, I have a good friend who's also an author, and he sets up support our troops, authors supporting our troops, and he sends, I should say. I say we just because I know him, but he sends thousands of paperback books to the troops that are deployed to places where there's not access to electronics and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm also involved with a charity called Books for Heroes, so they do a lot of the same thing.
Awesome.
So, in fact, that's one of the things I love about Books for Heroes, and I'm involved in other, military support groups, and I've learned to speak all four branches.
No, there's that fifth one. Don't forget that.
Well, technically, Coast Guard is now under Homeland Security.
Yeah, don't get me started.
No, let's save the politics for my regular show. Although I try and stay out of the politics there. I tend to cover.
They were actually under the Department of
Transportation for a while.
Treasury. That's right. When I was in there, so that was many moons ago. Anyhow.
Yeah, the movement of the Coast Guard always seems to get the short shrift and always seems to be shuffled around depending on who's got a bright idea this time. So you spent what you said 4 months writing and editing your book. So then what happened next?
Well, the thing of it was John had 10 books out. He was working on doing the audios on them, and he was doing another couple of books with a couple of other authors before I came along into his sphere of influence. And he went through and really, I can't praise him enough for his mentorship and what he did for me when I first started out. But he just didn't have the time to devote to my book because he was so busy with his stuff and with the other projects that he was already working on. So eventually, in that period of a year, I had gone and we met in Seattle and hung out and talked a bit. And I basically came to him one time and just said, "Hey, would you be upset if I just went ahead and took the project and made it completely my own and separated from what we were going to do and make it my own book?" And he said, "Absolutely not. Go for it." He says, "with my blessings." And so I did. And so it was still based in his world originally. So I had to change some stuff around a little bit to make it to where it wasn't, a cookie cutter of his books, but it's similar to his world now, pretty much the same, but with a few different names and whatnot. But Family Reunion was the name of the book, and it took place in Seattle, Washington, and that surrounding Pacific Northwest area, which is where I was originally from, and that's where the whole book is located. So, and then the new book talks about the main character from that book's his wife and kids back in the East, in West Virginia and South Carolina.
I don't think you ever actually said, are you traditionally published or self-published or small?
No, I'm self-published, yeah.
Okay, so you did go the self-published route. What made you decide to go self-published versus traditional versus independent publisher? What made you decide to go that route?
The indie route for me made the most sense because I really didn't have that much invested other than my blood, sweat, and tears. I didn't have, my wherewithal was not in the book. In other words, I didn't have to publish it. It wasn't something that I was doing for a living. It was at the time, it was just kind of a lark. And I thought, I'm just going to go ahead and put this out there just to see if people want to read it. And it took off. It went crazy, and I was just amazed.
Well, you mentioned...
So indie for me was just kind of the easiest way to get there. And I'm glad I did it, because I really think that, with Amazon and with Kindle and with Nook and iTunes and the digital book business is just amazing. And I think it's as historical as the Gutenberg press, to be honest with you. The fact that we have all these people around the world that can have their voice heard. A lot of it's crap, but a lot of it's really good too.
Well, I can say I've read some great indie books, and I've read some great traditional books, and I've read bad indie books and bad traditional books.
Yeah,
so,
it's not exclusive.
No, there is no exclusive thing, and I have come to firmly believe that just because you have a traditional publisher behind you doesn't mean it's the greatest book in the world. And I do know there are writers that churn out book after book after book after book after book. So do you have another book in the works? Is there are we expecting a third one from you? What's going on?
Yeah, I'm looking at probably, my expectation is that there'll be 5 books in this series before I move on to something else. Don't kill me, readers, if you hear this. But I probably am going to close this one off in 5 books. The first book was, like I said, a lark. The second book, I really sat down and decided that, which direction to go, and really did a little bit more planning on it. And so, yeah, I plan to branch out and do more stuff eventually, but there's a third book. I'm about 18,000 words into the third book already. And actually, the second book was to be the third book, but it didn't work out that way.
Oh, the best laid plans don't always work out. Sometimes they work out better.
I was in the middle of writing. I was, like I said, 18,000 words into the second book when I thought, man, this is going to take me a while, and it's going to take longer than my people are wanting to wait for the next story. So I thought I'll just whip off a quick, short story and publish it and put it out there at a reduced price and give that to them so that they've got something to chew on while I'm finishing the actual second book. And what happened was the damn characters in the second book, or in the third book, which I started writing, just grabbed me and wouldn't let go. And next thing I knew, I was at 80,000 plus words. And so it became the second book.
So the characters decided to run away with the story.
Yeah, you know what? It happens.
I've heard that. You're not the first author to mention that to me. Now, I've talked to authors that, they sit down and before they start writing, they do this plot and this outline, and they do all this planning. And then I've talked to authors who are what I call hybrids. They're like, okay, I need this plot point, and that plot point, and that plot point. What happens between those 4 plot points, those 3 or 4 plot points, even I don't know. And
yeah, it's for me, writing is cathartic, and it takes me places that I wouldn't have thought it would take me, and it's not something that I sit down and structure to the point that before the interview we were talking about different methods, and I am definitely what they call a pantster. I fly by the seat of my pants, and I find that I'm more creative that way.
In my mind, in my opinion, and I think that of your readers, whatever produces the next book is what you need to go with. In fact, one of my favorite authors, he happens to be a New York Times bestselling author. He likes to quote, and I forget who it is, but one of the classic authors who said, I think it was Frost, no joy in the writer, no joy in the reader, no surprise in the writer, no surprise in the reader.
Exactly.
And In fact, it's Brad Thor who I'm referring to as my favorite author.
I love his books. I've read everything he's got out.
Same here. In fact, I also have autographed copies, and I've been to
dog.
4 book signings,
Nice.
4 or 5 book signings.
Yeah, I read so much that I almost, until I started writing, I might add, but I have read so much up until that point that sometimes I would get different authors' stuff confused in my mind somehow, and I would be thinking, that guy's, did this in that last book, and why is he not in this book? Oh, wait a second, this is the wrong guy. I'm not real good at the trivia thing. So
I was actually reading Vince Flynn when he was alive and Brad Thor at the same time, and those were two because they're.
Yeah, that was a good story too.
Kyle Mills, I believe it is still continuing the Mitrap storyline. I haven't read it just because I wasn't ready to read Mitrap without.
Written by somebody else.
Yeah.
I think I actually have read one of those. I wasn't disappointed. I was just, it's different, but it's gonna be, that.
It's going to be. It really is.
Yeah, I love Vince Flynn. And
I actually
him go so early.
That was very, very sad. In fact, it was funny. The first one I read was Memorial Day, which I think was a Flynn, and then I got, and then I found a Thor book, and then I went back. I mean, I literally went through everything both authors had out at the time, and it's been a few years now, obviously.
Yeah, you see, because that just with me, I get them confused, the characters. I'll have the Camel Club people from Balducci in Vince Flynn's novels, or I'll have the guy from Mitch Rappin in Thor's novels, or like I said, I read so much back then that I devour them, and then I go to the next one, and sometimes they'd get a little blurred.
At the time I was reading, I went through everything both authors had out, and they both had a fair few, at least 5 or 6 out in 2 weeks, maybe 3.
That sounds a lot like me. I burn through an author pretty quickly once I've found that I like his stuff. And hopefully I'll have enough books out there eventually where people can do that with me. But, 2 so far. We'll see how that goes.
Is the second book already out, or is it coming out soon? And
actually, I sent I ordered the proof for the paperback today, and I uploaded the final file for Kindle today, and it's due out August 23rd. It's available for pre-order on Amazon right now. Family Reunion J, the capital J letter is the device that separates it from the first book.
That's cool. So
it's due out the 23rd, and the paperback will be out at the same time, and I'll be doing an audio shortly thereafter.
So you're going to do an audiobook version?
Yeah, I did the first one. I was approached probably 6 or 7 months into the after the release of the first book. Guy called me up and said, or emailed me or whatever, however he contacted me, and said, every time I go to check on one of my books or one of my authors that I'm working with, he was a producer, he said, your dang book keeps popping up. So he said, do you want to make it into an audiobook? And I said, sure. And Savage is his name, Greg Savage, and did an excellent job with it and got me going, and it's been out since February, the audio on the first book. And so, I think it really rounds it out with Amazon. If you have a digital copy out and audio copy out, they can they can whisper sync it, which basically you can stop reading and start listening without any hesitation.
Well, I'm also a fan of audiobooks. Now, I will admit I only get unabridged audiobooks because some authors will put out an abridged and an unabridged version. I don't want anything abridged. I want the whole story and all the details. And I do a lot of traveling for my day job. And so for work, I do a lot of traveling. And so I will put on that audiobook whether I'm flying or driving or when it's just not convenient to have a book in my hands. And
I like the unabridged, and I have listened to several of them. But I kind of stopped doing that when I got the stand and the unabridged stand, and listened to it clear across the country as I drove. It was just too much.
I don't think I've read or listened to that one, but it's like sometimes. In fact, funny story. I think book 5 was out. I had never read any of the Harry Potters. I was, in the definite minority at the time. It was when everybody was waiting, I think book 5 was out, book 6 was due out soon. And I hadn't read any of them. And my husband looked at me, my second husband looked at me and like, what do you mean you've, no, just never got there. So we had a 9-hour car ride coming up. So he downloaded the first Harry Potter in audio format. And we listened to it all the way, we listened to part of it all the way there. And then on the way back, we had to download the second one. And it was just one of those things. It was just, that's what got me started on audiobooks. So it's kind of a neat thing. And since then, I have to say some authors get one purchase out of me. I'll get the Kindle version and burn through it. My absolute favorites, most notably Thor, will get not one but 3. I'll get the hardback so I can get it signed. I'll get the Kindle because that'll come out at midnight, and I'll usually have a Thor book will come out at midnight. By the time the sun comes up, I will have it finished.
Yeah, and they're not small books either.
And then I'll get the audio on top of it.
You can be my fan anytime. I love to see people that buy all 3.
Oh yeah, I don't always, but I mean most. I'll pick up. I will pick up any author once. I'll buy any author once, and then if I like it, I'll start sniffing around. And
it's odd after that. If I find somebody I like, that was my whole way of doing things.
Exactly.
I find somebody I like. If I read their 16th book and they had 20 books out, I was cloistered with their stuff until it was done.
Give me the other 19. So, exactly. I mean, like I said, I am a very voracious reader, and I do read rather quickly, but then I'll go back and reread, or in the case of someone that has an audiobook, I'll get the audiobook sometimes and listen to it again, so I can slow down and go on the whole adventure at a more normal speed.
Well, you're just like me too. And the biggest disappointment is getting to the end when you go through that first blast read. And then you get to the end, you're going, "Oh crap! Now I'm done with it."
Yeah, and now I've got a whole nother year to wait.
Exactly.
Because Brad Thor does a book a year, period. Although I will say, this past year he actually put out a short story, the first one ever. So that was pretty cool. So got this little mini dose of Thor in midsummer. I was like, that was awesome. You need to do more of that.
Well, that was what my family reunion J was supposed to be. It was just supposed to be a little taste, and then when, like I said, the characters got a hold of me and wouldn't let go, it just went on, and so I said, do go with it, and that's what I did. So I'll get back to the other one here as soon as the dust settles from getting this one out and promoted and whatnot.
Now, we were talking off air, and you said that you have a background in marketing. So have you used that to help, since being self-published, you're responsible for all of it. Have you used that to your advantage?
Oh, sure. It's amazing what the digital age has provided for us, especially in putting things out there. But it's also made it much more difficult to reach a widespread audience because there's so much clutter out there. I mean, you're just bombarded with stuff daily. So you have to be unique in some way or the other in order to gain attention. If you don't have something going on that's going to grab people, then you get lost in the trees. So the marketing background has definitely helped me, because when I see an opportunity that I recognize as being something that might further my book career or my author career, I jump in with both feet. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but that's the risk with anything, but sometimes it does. Like I met a guy at one of the book fairs that I was at, and he turned out to be an actor, and he also was a writer and had his own publishing company. And so we got to talking, and he said, well, yeah, he says, and I did an interview with him, and turns out he got me as an extra in the John Russo movie, My Uncle John is a Zombie, which is John Russo was the original writer of Night of the Living Dead with George Romero. And so I got to be an extra in his movie, which has not been released yet, but it was an opportunity, something like that. Just I just jump on that and go do it, and I got a lot of good contacts and whatnot throughout that whole situation, to where I really feel like it was a win.
Oh yeah, my husband's always wondering why I have a business card holder that holds like 30 business cards. And we'll end up going to do something, and sure enough, I'm handing out a business card. And because I always carry station cards with me. I always carry,
Sure.
I always have something on me. And so now, what advice would you give to another writer who's either already self-published their book or about to, about marketing?
The main thing is, I say, you've got to be willing to invest in your own product if you expect other people to. You can't expect people to just happen across your stuff. You've got to make an effort. You've got to put in either time or money or both in order to get your stuff in front of people, because unless they have it in front of them with you giving them a reason to look at it, then they're going to not see it. You're not going to go anywhere. And I could tell you of hundreds of people that have really good books out that aren't getting any readership, or aren't making many sales on Amazon, or not making many sales on in the bookstores, because just nobody knows about them.
So by investing time or money, are we talking like Google ads or Facebook ads or time on Twitter?
Some of both, and you have to see what works for your genre. And Facebook is good, but it is also a black hole of time sucking if you don't watch it. I find myself, I'll just jump out there to make a post so that I can give some stuff to some people and do a giveaway or something, and bam, next thing I know, I've been on for 2 hours, and that's just not productive for me. I can't just sit there and veg out and laugh at cat videos, that's just not the best way to go about life. So yeah, it's and Google, I've used it, and there's just certain things that you've got to look at with each different genre or product, whatever it is you're marketing. My books, I got into the all the different Facebook pages that were about zombies and dystopian, all things about all things zombie. ATZ on Facebook is a really good resource and site. Jeffrey Clare is a good buddy of mine, and he runs that site, and he's got like 5,000 people that are on there. Not just, they don't just sign on and don't come back, but it's a very active community. And then there's, band of dystopian author and fans, and excuse me, the Zombie Inn, just all kinds of different. But that's what you've got to do. If you've written a book, a romance book, then you need to find out what's hot. You need to find out and go out and find, go on Amazon, see which is the bestseller. Go out there and search out and find people that are saying something about it online, and talk about it and find out what they're wanting.
Right. I mean, it's one of those things, I'm sure everything doesn't work for every genre, every product. So how do you evaluate what works and what doesn't?
Well, document, you got to follow through with what you're doing. And that's always the hardest part about it is tracking your results. You know, you can spend money, but if you don't spend it wisely, it's money not well spent.
So how does somebody, okay, so let's just say, for example, you put an ad out on Facebook, since we were just talking about Facebook. How do you track your results? Do you if you've just released your first book, you put an ad out on Facebook, how do you know if the results are coming from there or from the fact that you're tweeting about your book?
Because I basically always put some kind of tag in that post that's going to give me an idea of where I'm getting the traffic from. With Facebook especially, anytime I post something, I'll always do a custom URL for whatever it is I'm doing. And I've got a spreadsheet, and that spreadsheet tells me where I used that URL, where I posted it, what time I posted it, what, any other extenuating circumstances surrounding the whole thing. And that gives me I can go back and look at that URL or that customized URL, and it'll tell me how many hits it's had. Stuff like that.
So Amazon actually lets you create custom URLs, or is that something you have the technical ability?
Oh, you can get a URL customizer from many different sources. Google, there's a bunch of them out there. You can just go out and Google a URL shortener or customizer.
Okay,
because normally, if in the way that I originally found this was I was looking at the link for my book, and it was like a mile long, and I was like, crap, I don't want it to take up 16 lines in this post. And so I went out and found a URL shortener, and I said, hey, this would come in handy for trying to make sure that when I do something, I can figure out how many times people are looking at it.
That is a great tip. That is really an awesome tip. All right, we are a little past the bottom of the hour, so I'd like to take a brief commercial break. So why don't we'll get back to the marketing and tips for new writers in just a minute. Gotta pay those bills.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Is debt beating you down? You need discipline. You need the Debt Ninja. If you've been caught in a financial trap and need to be set free, then you need the Debt Ninja. Want to stop those harassing collection calls? Start saving thousands in interest and fees and get out of debt fast? Then you need to call the Debt Ninja. The Debt Ninja will find the best companies across the country that will help you consolidate all your bills into one easy payment, reduce your payments by 30 to 50%, and get you out of debt fast. If you have unsecured debt of $10,000 or more, such as credit cards, loans, or medical bills, call the Debt Ninja for a free 15-minute consultation.
Call 800-826-1246. 800-826-1246. That's 800-826-1246. Call today.
The Debt Ninja.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
All right. Thank you guys for hanging in there with me through those commercials. Hey, Mark.
Yes.
Thank you for hanging in there with me. And by the way, I've decided I've got a little gift for you.
Joy.
This episode is going to air on August 23rd. I believe that's a special day for you.
Awesome. That is actually very, very good. My book is out. It is out in the world. My second book.
Yes. I thought that would be one
Family
more.
Reunion J.
That would go right along with your the marketing conversation we were having.
Perfect. Nice, nice.
Hey,
thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. I've got it in with the station manager. What can I say? I can get it out on the 23rd, and I will also be sure, if you make sure I've got your Twitter handle before we sign off, when I will tag you in the post as soon as I see that the post goes live, so you can share it.
Nice. Very, very good. Thank you so much.
Oh, not a problem, because the way I see it, it helps you, and then you spreading the word about the show helps me in return. So it's mutual beneficial.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to have a release party on the 28th, right before the first airing, or the second night of Fear the Walking Dead. So it'll be like 8 o'clock on Facebook. I'm having a big deal. So make sure to remind me about that before we close up. And I'll give my Facebook page out, which is not an author page. It's just a straight up friend page, and because I like to be able to have friends and not just have readers.
Oh, both things are awesome. What can I say? But no, like I said, I thought that would tie in real well. I was thinking about it during the commercials, going, you know what? It would be really cool. And another marketing thing. Cool. If this came out on launch day.
That is cool.
So, and of course, it'll also be on my website, jessiescoffeeshop.com. But like I always say, I'll also give you the link so you can put it up on your site, too.
It will be, without a doubt.
So,
it will be up on several different
places,
Facebook pages. So,
hey, awesome! I love new listeners. So
you will have many, and I love new readers.
Hey, like I said, it's a new show, so you're one of the earlier ones in the show, but I'm trying to get it to grow. So, and also I'm going to say this: if any of your listeners are also writers or authors, I love to have published authors come on my show. So they can always drop me a line at jessiespov@klrnradio.com.
Yeah, that's everybody but Armand. Armand, you're not allowed.
Why isn't Armand allowed?
I just like to give him grief. He was my first podcast.
Got it. So you do your own podcasts?
No. He's got Armand Tufo, which is Armchair, which is a very good resource for authors and lots of fun. So he's a good guy.
That's cool. But like I said, I just thought it would tie in real well with the marketing we were discussing. So
yeah, no doubt.
Your custom URL thing, I think, is a great brainstorm because goodness knows I have trouble tracking all kinds of things. And
yeah, well, that's the trick of it is documentation, because if I think, well, you know what, I'll go back and add this to the spreadsheet later, it gets lost. So as soon as you post it or use it, any URL anywhere, make sure you add that to the spreadsheet immediately, because then it's there for perpetuity, and you can always go back and say, so where did I get this guy from, or where did this reader come from, or whatever.
Well, that's awesome. That is awesome. And
if your listeners want to hook up with my definitely you're going to, talk about my webpage a little bit more, but
go for
pmarkdebryan.com is my website, and I do a blog on there, and I have all kinds of neat stuff on there, and I do contests and stuff, give away really cool things. Right now I've got a pre-order contest, which won't be a pre-order because this is coming out on August 23rd, but I'm giving away a Night of the Living Dead script signed by John Russo and George Romero, both. And that kind of thing I do quite a bit. So if you guys want some really cool zombie swag or just post-apocalyptic swag or just neat swag, hook up on my website, get on my newsletter, and I will send you notifications whenever there's something going on. And I try and keep something going on pretty much all the time.
Oh, that sounds awesome. So who knows? I read all kinds of books. My Kindle is one of those things, you pop it open, you scroll through, you'll find thriller, nonfiction, dystopian, romance. I mean, between this show and my regular reading habits, it's still a wide variety of things that I read.
Yeah, people really sometimes will ask me and say, well, why in the heck are you writing in post-apocalyptic zombie genre? And I tell them, I said, well, I kind of lucked into this situation, but on the other hand, it's really not about, death and despair. It's about hope and regeneration and, how can you survive this and come out the other side. I think that's why the zombie genre and why The Walking Dead and shows like that are so popular, is because it's not about the, specifically about the horror. It's about the, can I live through this? Can I, the hope involved in it all, survive and thrive, So that's the reason why I like writing it, because it gives, gives people an opportunity to just delve in there and say, what would I do in this situation? And man, that's cool. I'd love to be able to do this, and start over, a fresh slate.
That one of the things I always look for in a good book is something that transports me away from whatever is going on in my everyday life, no matter what the genre is. And Zombie World certainly does that. So, like I said, I think you may have picked up a new reader.
Cool.
I usually read at least one book from everybody that's on the show, though. So,
I hope you enjoyed it. It was definitely a labor of love.
Hey, I have heard some pretty interesting stories about why people got into writing. So that's another neat one to add to the collection. Now, what tips would you give to a new writer just starting out? Someone who's either in the process of writing that book, or how far in advance should they start advertising? How far in advance should they start building what is generally termed in the industry that writer's platform, that website, that social media?
the social media, you need to start immediately. You need to get out, and even if you're not sure if you're going to write in thriller, or if you're going to write in horror, or if you're going to write in zombie or science fiction, whatever the genre, you just go out and get on social media and find like-minded people and get involved with that community wherever it's at. And once you're involved in that community, and that's going to build. It's going to do nothing besides it used to be called, in the old days of business, it used to be called networking. And guess what? That's exactly what it is. It's getting together with other people and making those connections. And once you get those connections made, it's going to pay off down the road, because whatever genre you go into, you're going to benefit by having that base there to begin with. As far as the website and stuff goes, that's not necessary until you actually get real close to actually publishing, because you're not going to build a readership until you have something to read. So I wouldn't say that's a high priority, but when you're looking at getting out there, definitely the social media, Facebook is real big, and Twitter, and Instagram somewhat, Snapchat, yeah, but Facebook, and which is kind of getting gray in the beard a little bit as far as people's consideration of it being cutting edge, but it's still really, really important. As far as getting ready, right. That's the biggest thing, is sit down. We call it ass and chair time. I'm sorry if that offends anyone, but that's what we call it, is putting yourself down there to just get it out on the page. Don't worry about your grammar. Don't worry about the sentence structure. Don't worry about being, you just want to stay in the right tense and the right person point of view, POV, and just get it out on the paper. And then once that's done, you can go back and tweak it and edit it and get the grammar and the punctuation correct. Of course, everybody has their own style, but that's the way I do it.
Now, do you hire an outside editor to copy edit or proofread the stuff before you publish it?
Well, there again, my mentor, John O'Brien, paid for my first edit by a professional editor when I did my first story. And I saw the difference in that story from pre-edit to post-edit. And I can tell you that it was worth every single penny of it. Now, I didn't have to make that initial investment. John paid for the first one. I have since then paid him back, but it wasn't something he asked me to do, but I did. But the fact that professional editor is just that. You're a writer. Don't try and be an editor. If you're an editor, you're an editor. If you want to be a writer, write. Just sit down and write. That's the biggest thing. And yes, I would definitely invest in a good cover and a good editor.
So since you mentioned covers, where do you get your covers? Do you have a specific artist you go to?
Yes. Justin McCormick is my artist, and he is phenomenal. You can see his connection to me on my Facebook page, and I tout him every time I get a chance because he's actually really, really good. Not terribly expensive. You're going to pay. Now, if you're going to want to get a book out there, I'm going to tell you that if you want it to be marketable, if you want it to be successful, you're going to probably end up, and I know this is going to make people cringe, but you're probably going to end up spending about at around $2,000. And some people say, I just don't have that. Well, you can make do with, getting by with no money. You can do it free. And that's editing, doing everything yourself, and you can get it out there. But I'm going to tell you, if you look at the books that you're interested in, writing in that genre, look at the number one bestseller in your genre. Look at all the different books and the book designs, their the way they're formatted. Check all that stuff out. If you're willing to do all the work and think that you have the capability of doing all the work, by all means, go ahead and do that. But I'm saying, I think Family Reunion, my first book, was such a big success because of the fact that it looked professionally done, and it didn't have 100 problems with the format, and it didn't have typos in it, and it was well edited.
Well, that's a good thing. So if someone says, well, I don't know what to write, do you tell them to just start writing? Do you tell them to write what they know, write what they read? I've heard all kinds of advice.
Well, definitely, write what you know is definitely a good thing. Writing what you don't know entails massive amounts of research. If you're going to write about something and you don't have a good handle on it, that's what I spend most of my time doing. If I get taken down a certain direction with my writing, if I get into a subject matter that I'm not 100% on, I have to spend probably 3 or 4 hours for every hour of writing, to doing the research on whatever it is I'm talking about. My new book had a lot of medical stuff in it. Goes back and explains the vaccine and the flu and the vaccine that caused the zombie apocalypse to break out in the first place. And so I approached a doctor, my doctor, and his name is Peter Techman. And he sat down with me and explained things to me. And even with his help, I still had to go out and spend hours and hours and hours reading up on the brain and the brain blood barrier and just all this different medical stuff and how the nanites that they make that work in medical circles, how it actually takes place, in order to have, because I've got to have a good understanding of it, but I don't pass all that nitty gritty on to you, the reader. But I have to know it myself in order to not make something not work.
Right. I actually was talking to an author, and this conversation took place off air, but she said writing a book is like an iceberg. What the reader sees is just the top 10% of what the author already actually
Absolutely
knows about that world. And I read a quote from J.K. Rowling. She'll be talking to a fan, and they'll suddenly look at her like she just skipped 20 pages and is talking about something they've never heard about. And that's because it's all in her head.
Right.
And I imagine every author is like that to an extent.
Right. But then again, we write a book once, and obviously it's over a long period of time and we put our blood, sweat, and tears into it. But there you get into people that, that really enjoyed that book or whatever, and they read it 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times. It's like Rocky Horror Picture Show. I mean, there's people that have every single word of that movie to memory and know more about the characters than the people who portrayed them. So, that's the other side of the coin.
So do you have some fans that know everything about your characters?
I have a few that call me, and honestly, when somebody does that, 9 times out of 10, they become a beta reader for me. So that beta reader is somebody that reads the book before it's ever published and gives me feedback on it, and that is a good thing too. Going back to a new writer and what a new writer should do, you need to get some people to read the stuff that you end up writing before you ever put it out there, and you need to make these people not your brother, your sister, your mother, your cousin. You need to make this a person that doesn't have any skin in personally offending you, because that's what they're going to do. They're going to come out and they're going to say this and that, and it's going to make you cringe and might hurt your feelings. But if they're, being honest, that's what you need to hear. You need to hear, well, there's this, issue here, or there's an issue there. And you're not going to get that from somebody who's afraid of hurting your feelings.
Right. My friend, I've mentioned her a few times now, Judy L. Moore, she actually on Twitter and her blog, which is at blackwolfeditorial.com, she actually does a tip of the day. And one of her recent tips, I don't remember, it was sometime this week, it was find someone to read your manuscript, not family.
Exactly.
So, and she's had several other interesting tips, and she does.
One of my favorite beta readers is she just took it to me, emailed me or Facebooked me or something, PM'd me or sent me a thing and said, this just pisses me off, and I didn't think this was very good at all. And so after I begged and pleaded with her to keep reading, and she gave me more feedback, she's been one of my most valuable resources.
That's great. Now, what about book reviews? Do you pay for professional book reviews or?
No, I do not. I give out copies to professional reviewers that request them. A lot of indie authors that do have people that they send what they call an ARC, which is basically given a free copy to somebody so that they'll review it. But I don't do that. But however, I do, like with the audio version of my book, I sent it to a guy who put out there that if anybody has an audio book they want it reviewed, excuse me, they'd send me a copy and I'll give a review. But I basically steer away from that, because that's one thing that if you try and BS the readers, and it's a good way to cut your longevity in the whole situation, because people aren't fools, if you tell them you're getting a certain product and you don't give it to them, then they're going to one person out of 10 will say something good about you, but 9 people out of 10 will say something bad about you if there's something bad to be said.
Well, that's very much good advice. Now, when you mentioned the website, let's go back to that for a minute. Should, say, a writer who knows that their publication date is, we're going to say 3 months out, should they start that site and start doing blogs, short stories, flash fiction, that kind of thing?
Yeah, and there again, that's a matter of preference for the particular author, but there's definitely no harm in it. But it's something that you got to look at. What is the terminology? Work smarter, not harder. Put like there's certain things that I've done in marketing that have given me no return on investment whatsoever. So the time that I set aside for that type of activity has got to be less than the things that maybe I don't like doing so much, but they pay off in big returns. So do what you need to do as far as the website's concerned, and a blog's a good idea, or like you said, flash fiction, or doing a few short stories and putting them out there for free. Now, this is a really important point that I haven't talked about since we've been on, is my first original short story was published in John O'Brien's book, The Untold Stories. So that short story was out there, and when John agreed to let me go ahead and publish my own story, he, basically allowed me to take that short story, and then I used that as a funnel. And I say this word, and I don't think it's copyrighted by these people, but I always thought of it as just a gateway to my full-size novel. Was basically I just put that out there for free on Smashwords, which is another digital platform that gives it out to iTunes and Nook and Barnes and Noble and all the different places, except for Amazon. Excuse me. And so I used that book, that short story, and put it out there again and said, if you enjoyed the short story at the end of it and you'd like to read the full-length novel, here's a link. And that link led to my website, because Smashwords doesn't allow you to point to an actual Amazon page. So it went to my website, and I also published it on Amazon for 99 cents. And that 99-cent book on Amazon gave you a link at the back of it to the full-length novel on Amazon, which is legal. And eventually they price matched the Amazon page at 99 cents, where you send in things saying, hey, I can get this book for free on Smashwords. And after about a month, Amazon picks that up and doesn't charge anything for that short story. That short story gets read, and because there's, it's a free book, right? So you go out and read it, and you find it in a genre and you like it, then you're going to want to see the rest of the story, and bada bing.
Right. I mean, that's like I said, I just think the whole process behind it is fascinating. I don't presently have the time, maybe one of these days, because granted, enough people are always, I do occasionally share small bits of my writing, and a lot of people are going, "Ooh, I want to see more of this," or you need to fix this, or you need, because I have friends that read for me a lot. Some of them are actually authors because I beta read for them, and
Sure.
and they know that I write, but that I never really share it. But they'll still sometimes read my stuff anyway, even though they know I'm not really working towards publication. And I don't know about you, but I write to get the characters and the voices out of my head and give them a home of their own.
Like I said, the way that I got into this was kind of backwards, but I found that I enjoy it, and I've decided to make it something that I'm going to continue to do just because I enjoy it so much, and I'm not going to try and turn it into something that's weighing over my head. But like you said off air with me, we talked about, if you like to do it, if it's something that grabs your attention, and if you want to do something, that get after it and do it, and you'll learn through that experience. If you sat down, because I didn't have any of this experience 2 years ago. I had no idea how to direct people from a short story to a long story, and I didn't know how Amazon worked. I didn't know how Smashwords worked. I didn't know any of this stuff. And honestly, the only way I learned it was doing it.
They often say that experiencing something firsthand is often the best way to learn it.
Well, for me it is. There's different people are different, but just going through the process has taught me a lot, and a lot of things that, like you said, you can read the manual, but until you sit down and actually put some time in doing it, you're not going to understand it. And once you understand it, then it's there. So do it. That's, one of the most brilliant marketing strategies ever. Just do it.
Now, question. John O'Brien essentially took you under his wing and helped you get your start. Do you have any plans down the line to pay that back by helping another up-and-coming author get their start?
Absolutely not. There's no way. I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, definitely. I will definitely do that. And the thing of it is, you've got to, and the community of writers that I deal with is so amazing. The indie authors, it's not everybody for themselves. It's so amazing how many people give you a leg up. Joe McKinney, who I haven't mentioned, but I should have, because he's a dear friend and he's a wonderful author, and he read my first book and volunteered to give me a blurb for a review saying how much he loved it. And he's a Bram Stoker award winner in horror, and so that gave me street cred immediately. And things like that in this industry didn't happen 20 years ago, didn't happen 10 years ago, didn't happen 5 years ago. I mean, it's just really boiled up with the indie-based, the independent writers, and the self-publishing thing, because, we don't have this, it's not a finite pie. People, like you said, you love to read in different genres. A lot of people are just like that. They love to read in different genres, and if they like a story, it doesn't have to be a particular genre that they're reading in. Did that answer your question?
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. So, if someone out there says, "But I always wanted to go the traditional route," what would you say to that person?
Go for it, but don't expect to see immediate results. I can tell you, people, I'm not sure if it was Stephen King that got the thousands and thousands of rejection letters, or who it was, but I remember a very famous author got letter after letter telling him that he would never be anything, throw away his typewriter or whatever it was at the time. Throw away your computer, don't write on it anymore, go out and buy a fishing pole or something, to that effect. Don't let anybody ever tell you you can't do it. I was 54 years old when I published my first book, don't tell anybody that it's too late. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't do it. Just sit down and do it. And that is what it takes. It doesn't depend on somebody else. It just depends on your willingness to put in the time and effort to make it happen.
Now, one of the things I've noticed on social media, because while I'm not active in the social media writer community because I'm not a writer, I do, for lack of a term, troll them on Twitter. Now, I don't, I more like stalk, because I don't try and stir up antagonizing conversations, but I do kind of watch for things. And I've noticed, I don't know if it's a trend or just, some people put writer in their bio or aspiring author, but I've also noticed a trend of wannabe writer or aspiring writer. What do you think of that term?
Wow. I fell victim to that early on because I just, I had trouble calling myself an author, or a writer. So what do you do? Well, I'm a computer expert, but I write on the side. But, that's not who I am. I mean, I'm a writer. I wrote something, I put it down on paper, and that's there. That's another cool thing about being a writer is after you've told that story and put it down on paper or ones and zeros on a computer somewhere, it's out there. It used to be you had a verbal tradition where you passed on stuff by telling a story, but now, we've got the print and we've got the computer and we've got this magical information age where you can find all this stuff. Once you put that down and put it out there, it's out there. That's a legacy of mine for me, I just, I haven't told anybody this yet, but with my book coming out, I've dedicated it to my grandson. I just, he's 10 months old, and I put it in the front of it. It says, for Finn. I hope you read this and find out that your grandpa was a cool dude, because that's going to be there for him to look at, down the road when he's 20 years old and I'm gone,
Well, let's hope you're not gone in 20 years, because I'd like to still see books of yours coming out. Because last I checked, there's no upper age limit on writing.
No, and that's another cool thing. Like I said, don't let people tell you can't do it because you're too old or you're too young or it's just, something you just got to do.
Now, what about the author that says, well, I may be able to pay for editing, but I don't know if I'll be able to pay for the professional cover, or I don't know, I don't know if I can come up with the full $2,000 to do everything. If I have to cut back between the marketing, the professional cover, and the editing, I've got to cut corners
Whatever you
somewhere.
don't spend in dollars, you're going to have to spend in time. If you can't afford any marketing, then you're going to have to be the marketing coordinator and go out and walk the streets and knock on doors. And by knock on doors, I mean go to bookstores, go to the public library and go do a thing here, go to a book fair there, that kind of thing. As far as what to cut back on, if you're going to cut back on, the first thing I'd say not to cut back on is editing. I would definitely say if you're going to spend any money at all, spend it on an editor. First and foremost.
I'd have to agree with you.
Second thing is a cover, because no matter what anybody tells you, people judge a book by its cover.
I'd have to agree with you because there's only been 3 books in the past 10 years that I can recall that I just couldn't finish reading. And I did my research and I looked them up a while ago before I started the show. I looked up, all of them were self-published books, and I'm willing to bet that not one of them had been through a professional editor.
Well, I don't do reviews anymore. I don't review other people's stuff because, I'm very close to that. So, but when I did, before I ever started writing, I read a zombie apocalypse book by, I don't even remember who. It was like totally that doesn't matter. But, he killed off a character in one chapter, and in the next chapter, the character was running alongside him and having a conversation with him. That is just the kind of thing that is going to kill any book. And
True.
Your reviews are going to show it. And if you put out something that's garbage, it's going to show up in your reviews. And that's what drives your book. Once your book is digital, once it's going to drive the digital copy of your book. Once it's out there, you've got to have readership that's, like I said, 1 out of 10 people, maybe, if you're lucky, you get 10% of the people that read your book are going to leave a review. That doesn't guarantee it's going to be a good review, but 1 in 10 is going to leave a review. If that's a high number too. That's just kind of shoot for the stars. I think Family Reunion has 149 reviews right now, with an average 4.3 rating out of 5. So that's really good. But there's definitely some 1-star reviews in there. There's definitely some 2-star reviews in there. But if you don't have a good edit on the book, you're going to end up with a bunch of bad reviews or no reviews at all, and then your book isn't going to do anything.
All right, so basically you're saying if you've got to cut back, spend the money on the editing and the cover in that order.
Yes.
And maybe you can cut back on marketing at least for a while.
Right. A lot of that marketing you're already paying for. If you've got an internet connection, that's marketing. If you've got a telephone, that's marketing. If you've got feet and a will, and you can get copies made of the front cover of your book or a synopsis of your book, or can spend the time to have a free lecture on your genre at the local library, then, those things you can do without having to spend money. Where you're talking about money is actual advertising. BookBub, I just did a BookBub deal in June and sold 1,400 copies of the book in one day. That's how good they are. They charge you for that. That's
okay. Did you say BookBub or BookHub?
BookBub, B-U-B, B-O-O-K-B-U-B, and basically it is a commercial setup where you pay them to put your book out. Now you have to discount your book because it's a discounted site. And people can go out and join BookBub for free, and you get an email every day. And that email will focus on what kind of books you like, and it will give you 5 books or 2 books at 99 cents that were normally $4.99 or $3.99, or it'll give you a free book, or it will give you a book at half price. And but those are the kind of things that cost money, and they don't accept everybody, so you've got to build up a little bit of a rep to get on those. And then, like you were talking about before, Google and Google ads and Facebook ads. The best thing that I've found is that you're going to get out of it what you put into it. Advertising, you're going to either pay money for it, or if it's free. If free advertising you're paying what it's worth 9 times out of 10.
Well, I have to say on that note that even though I don't charge for my interviews and never will, because quite frankly it's a labor of love, I hope you get a little more out of it than that.
No, that's not what I meant.
I know, I'm teasing.
Yeah, I got you. But, because there again, this is time that I'm putting into this. And that's worth something to me. My time is worth something to me. Your time is worth something to you. But guess what? I'm going to promote the heck out of this show and your site because you were kind enough to have me on, and vice versa. So that is a win-win. Didn't cost me anything, but I had to, I've had a computer connection with a headset and Skype, and we're able to do this in this technology, in this technological wondrous age that we live in. And it's really cool, and I really appreciate you having me on.
Hey, I have to say, I've had not just U.S. authors. I've had one from Australia. I've had a freelance editor from New Zealand, an author from New Zealand, and I'm just now starting to find U.S. authors. So it's one of those things of, yeah, and it'll build on itself. Like you said, I got a lot of author friends. Guess what? They're going to know about you, and you're going to have more interviews, and your site will grow, and their books will sell, and everybody is going to benefit through that. So right, and like I said, I consider I started the show because I was doing it under the old show tag, and then I decided, no, my love of books and writing, they need its own little corner. Because I didn't want my discussion of North Korea and Kim Jong-un to be mixed in with episodes about books and writing. Because they would just get, like you put it, lost in the noise.
Right.
Because people that are looking for information on Kim Jong-un don't want to hear about your book.
Exactly.
They want to know what's going on with the South China Sea and what missiles North Korea launched lately. And people that want to hear about your book want to see about your book and 5 other people's books, and maybe an editor or an agent, if I can get one to come on, or a publisher or something like that. But they're not. Absolutely. They don't care what Kim Jong-un did as a teenager.
Exactly.
So that's why I decided those two things needed to go their separate ways, and I pulled the episodes out and set them up separately. So
I think you've got a wonderful idea, and I wish you all the luck, and I think it's going to be a wonderful success for you. And like I said, next year this time we'll all be back together, and we'll have another book for me, and we'll see how many thousands and thousands and thousands of listeners that you have.
Well, that would be awesome, and you're welcome to keep my email, so you know how to find me. And of course, there's a contact form on my website. But this isn't about my show. This is about you, so why don't you give out your social media information?
Twitter is DEB, or it's at DEBP, or DEBRU, or gosh, my goodness, can you cut this out and we'll try that again? My Twitter is DeBryan P, at DeBryan P, and that's DEBRYANP. My website is PMarkDeBryan, that's PMarkDeBryan.com, and Facebook is PMarkDeBryan on Facebook. Please look me up and friend me. I don't have an author page because I like to interact with everybody on my page individually, and so I've not opened up an author page. Not that I won't someday in the future, but I've decided to do it that way. So let's see. I got Facebook. I did the website. I did Twitter. What am I missing?
I don't know. I think you covered the highlights anyway. And I'll bet if you
contact me, and once you look me up on Facebook, pretty much everything that I do gets directed through there and through my website. So, and they both commingle so well that once you're a member of either one, you're going to know about the other. My email is pmdebryan@gmail.com if you want to drop me a line. That's pmdebryan@gmail.com.
Well, Mark, I thank you very much for being a guest, and I hope you have an outstanding day and happy launch day.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You have been an awesome guest.
Thank you so much.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.